Welcome into the Farzy Show, everybody, here at the Steven Singer Studios. The Farzy Show, of course, is presented by DestinationRetirement.com. So much to get into. Sixers played 2 games since we last spoke on Friday when we did that live show. That was fun. Sixers played twice. They won once, and that was yesterday against the Chicago Bulls. And it was a fine game by Joel Embiid and the Sixers offense, including Tobias Harris, who had another 20-plus point performance. 23 points to be exact. Tyrese Maxey had himself a good game as he continues to improve from beyond the arc. Matisse Thybulle did not play in that game, so DeMar DeRozan absolutely went off for 45 points. So it was a good game offensively for the 76ers. That was nice. You know, it was not a good game offensively. The game they played on Friday night when they played in Dallas against the Mavericks for the 10 o'clock tip-off, they're playing well originally. They got up well. They got up about big, 16 points. And then they went zone. And then the Mavericks went zone defense, and the Sixers were like, whoa, what? And they had no idea what to do against the zone defense, and that's when they were terrible, and the Mavs ended up taking the win. But let's talk about what happened on the Sunday, where the Sixers won. You had DeMar DeRozan playing in that game. You did not have Zach LaVine playing in that game. Now, DeMar DeRozan, like I said, was absolutely able to go off, offensively speaking, because you did not have your best defensive player on the floor, not named Joel Embiid, in Matisse Thybulle. You tried throwing out Danny Green to try to do some stuff on DeMar DeRozan. That didn't happen. You tried throwing out George Niang, and I don't even need to finish that sentence. You know the ending. But here's what was so amazing about that game. Just last thing on DeMar DeRozan. He did that. He scored 45 points by making no three-pointers. That is astonishing in today's day and age. 18 for 30 from the floor. 9 free throws he hit. I believe it was 9 of 13 in the game. Not one three-pointer. He was 0 for 2 from beyond the arc. 45 points. That's like next to impossible in the year 2022. That's insane. So hat tip to him. However, hat tip more so to Joel Embiid, who yesterday also, with his 40-point game, by the way, his overhit in the way I played, so the overhit, which is always nice. And the Sixers covered, side note. But Joel Embiid with his 40-point game passed Wilt Chamberlain on the 76ers all-time scoring list. Now, Wilt obviously didn't play his entire career for the Sixers. There's the Warriors involved, obviously. And then, of course, there's the Lakers out there at the end of his career. But the vast majority with the 76ers. But to pass that name on this list for this team all time, regardless, whenever you pass the name Wilt Chamberlain, you're doing something right, needless to say. And I continue to be dazzled. Embiid had 2 threes yesterday. He had some great post-ups, had some great assists as well. Also got you 10 rebounds. This is the style of play that you can always go back to with Daryl Morey, and you think to yourself, how much do you really need before the All-Star break, or before the trade deadline on Thursday, by the way? How much do you really need to add to this team to become a legit championship contender? The answer to that is still another star player. I know James Harden's name is still very much out there, despite whatever they want to say with Steve Nash at his press conferences with the Nets. They just lost 8 in a row, I believe it is now. It's insane. So James Harden's name's out there. Bradley Beal's name's out there. On the very lower scale, a guy like CJ McCollum's name is out there. But right now, how much do you really need? And I think to win an NBA championship, you still need to add a James Harden, a Bradley Beal, someone of that ilk that can come in here and be a legit scorer between Tobias Harris and Joel Embiid, assuming Tobias Harris is still here in Philadelphia when you do pull the trigger on a trade. The question is what you're willing to give up. And it doesn't feel right to me. Like, looking at James Harden right now, I know it's the sexy name, and he definitely has a lot left in the tank. But I got to be honest, I have this awful gut feeling about getting James Harden in Philadelphia. It goes again. Like, I look at the numbers. I try not to be a numbers guy, but when you're considering you could be mortgaging your future to win now with James Harden at 32 years old, I don't know if it's just that nervousness of this better work out, and if it doesn't, then Maxey could be gone, and Thybulle could be gone, and you would have tried to make this big run with Joel Embiid and James Harden, and it didn't work out. And in a way, and I felt like this for a while, even going back to 2 years ago when Daryl Morey was considering trading James Harden for Ben Simmons, then I would have done that deal. Like, even like throwing Ben Simmons. Absolute throw-in Ben Simmons. That would have been the deal. Would have been a throw-in. But Ben Simmons being involved in that deal, yes, do it. Right then and there. 31 years old, 30 years old, 31 years old at the time. make the deal, get James Harden here in Philadelphia. Would have done that deal then. But now that I don't know how much Ben can really get you back, and I know money-wise, you're going to have to throw it again. You're going to have to get Ben involved in this deal. You're going to probably have to get Maxey, Thibault, some of these other guys involved in the deal to bring James Harden here to Philly. Now he's 32 years old. And I'm thinking, this is the big swing. This reminds me, in a way, for much different reasons, it reminds me of, all right, one almost last-ditch effort, it feels like. Because you never know how long Joel Embiid's going to play. You never know how long he's going to play at this level. But if James Harden comes here to Philadelphia, it almost feels like, just in terms of what you're going to get in the return on this trade, it feels like Chris Webber. In a much different, obviously James Harden come here, still has a lot more left in the tank, can still be a great scorer for this team. I'm not comparing the talent level of the two. I'm comparing the expectations. Like, what can we squeeze the last out of Allen Iverson by getting Chris Webber here? And what can we really make sure we get out of this with James Harden and Joel Embiid? This team with James Harden and Joel Embiid blows that team out of the water, and that's why I even hate making the comparison. But I'm just saying, expectations-wise, it's you better do it. It's the Dikembe Mutombo would probably be a better type of analogy. Oh, you're bringing Dikembe in here. You're trading away Theo Ratliff, a guy everybody loved, right? Nazi Mohammed, Pepe Sanchez, Temple's own, and you're bringing in Dikembe Mutombo. And you're trying to make that push for a championship. That was the big swing, and when you really boil it down, it was a miss. They made it to a championship, but they didn't win the championship. The goal was to win a championship. And James Harden, here's what makes me feel good about getting James Harden. The fact that if you do bring him in here, it's the best chance you've had since the Mutombo deal to win a championship. You combine him with Joel Embiid, then this offense can really go to new levels. Defense, not so much. But offensively speaking, this would be a clicking on all cylinders type of offense. I would hate to see Max or Thibault go anywhere for anyone. I want them to stay here in Philadelphia, but you can't let those guys get in the way of getting James Harden here in Philadelphia. And I know a lot of people look at Daryl Morey and they say, oh, he looks at James Harden, that's the guy he's got to get back. But I've had this feeling for a long time with Morey. I almost feel like the James Harden deal is like too obvious. I almost feel like it's almost below someone like Daryl Morey, where no, he's going to come up with a smarter deal, a better deal for this team that'll make this team even better. But it's an odd thing. All the reports say he wants Harden. The reports come out that Harden is still pretty much available. And the reports come out also saying that James Harden is not so happy being in the Brooklyn Nets organization right now when he thought he was going to be joining some super team. And now that really hasn't worked out. Roster-wise, yeah, sure. But Kyrie Irving is only halfway available, even less than that since the start of the season, even dating back to last year. Kevin Durant has had his injury issues. James Harden is the guy. Supposed to join a super team, and now he's in the Houston North. Basically, certainly, again, on paper, much better. But in terms of what he's actually having to go through so far this season, running that offense, yeah, it's a little bit more difficult. So come join Joel Embiid. Seems to work out for everybody. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine one of those situations where Joel Embiid either brings the ball up or gets the ball at the foul line extended, dribbles down to the block, gets double teamed, and all of a sudden he kicks out two? Not Furkan Korkmaz. Not George Niang. Not even Tobias Harris. Not even Tyrese Maxey. Not even Seth Curry. He kicks it out to James Harden. Yeah, that gives you a pretty good feeling. Sixers, of course, as we all know, look, 32 years old, James Harden is right now. Birthday in August, I believe. So that would make me feel really good this year. It's then about what happens going forward, especially with the money attached to James Harden. That's what you got to be concerned about. Is it going to be all in for this 1 year, maybe next year, and then hopefully get a third year out of this? Or are you going to be getting James Harden when he's really going to start to be breaking down in his career? And that's what concerns you a little bit going forward. That's a lot of money attached to a player. All in all, you gotta present yourself with the best chance to win right now. And the ultimate goal of this franchise is, I've said a million times, as the organization has said a million times, and a million other people have said a million times, the number one goal is to make sure you don't waste the prime of Joel Embiid and make sure this team can do whatever it takes to win a championship. And ultimately, James Harden's the guy that puts you in that best possible position tomorrow and the rest of this season, and then probably most of next year. But there's a voice in the back of my head that gives me reservations about this deal. Do it. Ignore the voice. Please ignore the voice. I don't know. Maybe it's just a fatalist attitude of trading for Mutombo, going through that, not winning the championship. Not that I ever really expected to win a championship. Chris Webber comes to Philadelphia, and then he's got nothing left in the tank, and that didn't really work out. So, yeah. But you know who's going to help us with this? Tom Moore. Tom Moore, we're going to be joining the show a little bit later today. The great Tom Moore, a friend of mine. He'll be joining the program, sports columnist. You see it right there. I knew him from the Intelligencer growing up in Doylestown, and now part of Gannett USA Today and that Sixers Wire network and all. So he'll be joining us to help us break down all things NBA trade deadline, ladies and gentlemen, which is this week. So happy trade deadline week to all you fine people. NBA trade deadline's coming up on Thursday. Sixers, I mentioned they lost to the Mavericks. That was embarrassing, but they beat the Bulls yesterday, 119-108. Embiid at 40, Harris 23, Maxey 16, DeRozan 45. Unbelievable. Let me concentrate on that. Like I said, Thibault did not play yesterday because he had that shoulder injury. So that's where DeRozan really went off. But here's something that I'm really enjoying. Tyrese Maxey shooting threes. Now, Alaa Abdelnaby made the point at least 2 or 3 times during the broadcast that Maxey came out because Kate and Alaa are starting to travel with the Sixers again. So it was interesting that Maxey was out pregame shooting threes from the corner, foul line extended from the perimeter, at top of the key, and he was just working on his 3-point game. So then he, obviously went back in the locker room after pregame warmups, came back out and started hitting threes in the game. And Alaa was like, usually what happens is you work on that and you don't throw it right into the game. It's like something that takes time to develop, and he finally started to hit that shot. And he had been doing that with some regularity over his last couple of games. But yesterday, he seemed like he had zero hesitation. He seemed like he had been a 3-point shooter for the vast majority of his NBA career, which is only not even 2 years when you think about it. It's insane. But when you look at the way Tyrese Maxey has been playing these games, the number one thing I was looking for after he had that huge night away from Joel Embiid, where it was him and Tobias Harris running the team, I wanted to know that he was going to take that confidence from that game, the 33-point game, I want to say, and I wanted him to take that confidence and use that in games where Joel Embiid was playing. And although you look at it, only 16 points, but that's the exact style of play you want from Tyrese Maxey. The exact style of play. He was running the offense as your point guard. He was creating shots for himself. He was driving a lane with that quick first step that he has. It's just lightning fast. And then he was sitting at the top of the key or sitting around the 3-point line waiting for an outlet pass or kick out so he could hit a 3. And he would hit it. That is perfection. Leaps and bounds better than what we have seen from last year. Last year we saw the flashes, especially in the playoffs, some moments of brilliance when he did what made him most comfortable on the court, and he did really well. This year you're starting to see Tyrese Maxey take those steps forward, and that's one of the things right now that's making me go, any trade that's out there, whether that's Bradley Beal, whether that's CJ McCollum, whether that's James Harden, if there's a way somehow magically to hold on to Tyrese Maxey, and according to our friend Michael KB, he is one of the people that is off the table, untouchable, if you will, in a trade. Now, that's what's out there right now. Whether or not that's what actually happens, I seriously believe that there is nobody on this roster other than Joel Embiid that is untouchable. And I hate the word untouchable. And anytime it gets thrown out in any sport, I always go, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, that's posturing right now. That's all that is. Oh, he's untouchable. Yeah, okay, sure he is. If I'm another team and I offer you something that blows you out of the water, all of a sudden nobody's untouchable except Joel Embiid. But if I'm another team and I just absolutely blow the doors out, this is the guy that perfect fit for my team right now and help me win and get to the next level, or can help me win the next 3 years. I'm going to make that trade. I'm going to give you more than anybody else is. Oh, that guy's untouchable? Sorry. No, I don't think so. But that coming out at least makes me know that the Sixers are definitely, their goal is to hold on to him. We'll see if that actually happens. I want to spend some time on this because we don't talk enough Flyers. Now, the Flyers haven't earned a lot of minutes on this program. But credit to Claude Giroux, captain of the Philadelphia Flyers, captain of the Metro Division in the All-Star game, going home with the MVP trophy. If you didn't see the footage of him walking around with his son, Gavin, melts your heart. Beautiful. If you didn't see the footage, if you didn't see NAM playing, he was spectacular for the Metro. He was dazzling. Got a couple of goals. And what was really interesting, outside of just Giroux, it was funny listening to some of the guys post-game talk about how other guys you could tell were taking this a lot more serious than some other guys. Like, everybody wanted to win, but you could tell some other guys already had that type of Game 7 edge to them in the All-Star game. Now, I don't know if it was because they wanted to win that car or whatever the deal was and split the $1 million for everybody on the team, but whatever it was, there was a little edge. And it seemed like Claude and his guys in the Metro definitely had that edge about them throughout the All-Star competitions. The festivities as far as the, what do they call it? The breakaway contest? That was pretty funny. Some of the guys, I forget who it was, dressed up like Average Joe. Phil Hughes, was it? No, it wasn't Phil. What's his name? I'm blanking on the kid from the Devils. Anyway, the one guy was dressed up like The Hangover, like Zach Galifianakis from The Hangover. It was a sideshow. It was not at all denied being a sideshow. But if you were going to have an All-Star game in Vegas, that was the type of event to have with an All-Star game in Vegas. So kudos to the NHL for a fine, fine weekend of All-Star festivities. By the way, Flyers will be back in action on Wednesday, I believe it is. They'll be back. First, off for a week. Sixers, things aren't very easy right now in the Eastern Conference. Very tightly wrapped division. Sixers a game and a half, out of first place right now. And it seems like there's a game and a half to 2 games separating the first. Now, let's see. These standings here are from, now the Bucks. I'm taping this show, by the way. I'm not live today. Sorry, folks. The Bucks right now are leading at the time I tape this. They're leading at halftime of their game against the Clippers. They're up 11. And the Bucks could be jumping the Bulls and look like they could be in a tie for first place with the Heat, or at least one game behind the Heat, or half game behind the Heat. So Sixers right now down at the 5th spot in the Eastern Conference, and you see that a game and a half separates 5 from 1 in the Eastern Conference. So there you go. Sixers back in action tomorrow night, Tuesday night, when they welcome the best team in the NBA, pretty much the Phoenix Suns. They'll welcome them to town, 7 o'clock tip-off Tuesday night. Hey, real quick, before we get to our friend Tom Moore, talk a little bit more Sixers basketball and whatnot, let's get to our good friend Mike Seibert, RICP. That's Destination Retirement, destinationretirement.com. He's a financial advisor for Eagles fans only. That's right, you heard me correct. Eagles fans only. His firm, Destination Retirement, LLC, destinationretirement.com, is a full-service planning firm and an affiliate of 1847 Financial. Let him create a written financial plan for your accumulation years as well as your distribution years. With pensions few and far between, they're on your own when it comes to retirement with only a 401k or IRA. So let Mike turn your assets into an efficient income stream that you can't outlive. That's the goal, right? Mike Seibert, again, here for Eagles fans and Eagles fans alone. Let him put a plan in place for you for your retirement, or if you're already in retirement, a plan that helps you alleviate people's biggest fear, running out of money. So come on, Eagles fans, with stock market volatility and taxes probably going up, you need someone as your financial head coach with the experience to tackle these obstacles. With over 30 years in the financial game, Mike Seibert is a seasoned veteran who is committed to helping Eagles fans and Eagles fans alone get to and through retirement. You can reach Mike at 484-275-6035. That's 484-275-6035, or visit destinationretirement.com. That's destinationretirement.com. Click on Find Out at the top of the page and fill out the questionnaire to see how prepared you are for retirement. Mike will get back to you and talk to you about how he can help. And as always, for Mike Seibert, go Birds. Let's talk about our friend Steven Singer here at the Steven Singer Studios, ladies and gentlemen. Steven wants to get you ready for Valentine's Day, so make sure you take care of that special someone in your life with a beautiful gold-dipped Emerald City rose. Picture it, a real rose dipped and trimmed in pure 24-karat gold and sparkling with green petals. This magical Emerald City rose will take her breath away this Valentine's Day as she opens the box. Oh, she'll think it's fantastic. 24-karat gold, sparkling, shimmering. It's just fantastic. You don't want to leave her green with envy. You know what I'm saying? Somebody else gets it. She sees it. She didn't get it. She's got the envy. Should have gotten it for her. Go to IHateStevenSinger.com today. That's IHateStevenSinger.com for your 24-karat gold dip rose. Emerald City, green, gold dipped rose. Get yours before they're gone exclusively at IHateStevenSinger.com. Start at just $59, and they come with a lifetime guarantee. Always fast and free shipping, by the way, in time for Valentine's Day at IHateStevenSinger.com. Steven Singer Jewelers, one place, one price, the perfect price every single day. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. Without further ado, let's jump on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line, talk to our good friend, Tom Moore. And joining us right now on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line, my good friend, you know him, covered the Sixers for a long time. You're now writing, of course, a columnist for the Bucks County Courier-Times, Intelligencer, Gannett, USA Today as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Moore. What's going on there, Tom?
Hey, Mark, how are you doing?
Doing fantastic. Of course, well, first of all, let me just say this. I know it's a holiday, so, happy deadline week. I know we're all really excited, waiting with bated breath to see James Harden, Ben Simmons, what happens, Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, whatever it might be. What's your prep like on a week like this when it comes to the deadline?
Yeah, you just try to kind of be available. And I mean, I remember, trades happening like when I was at the paper in the back when they used to do paste up, where they would physically paste the copy onto the pages, and there was a non-photo blue pen where you could write on it. You would write on it so that the composing people would know what to remove, but it wouldn't show up in the paper. I was taking notes when Billy King, I think it might have been the Weber trade. I was taking notes on a 11 by 20 piece of paper that the paper's built on, with what Billy King was saying after. I'm pretty sure that's what it was, the Weber thing. So yeah, it's you never know when it's going to happen. If they do it at 11:30 at night, they may speak at 11:30 at night. Depending. The deadline's Thursday at 3, and you try not to schedule too much where you can't change it, or you don't want any dentist appointments or anything this week. It's not a good time till Friday.
I'm on call all week, basically, is how it works for you.
Yeah, you never know. It could be real quiet, but you just never know.
Right. So on that note, though, just let's walk up to it here, because I know everyone wants to talk about James Harden. We'll certainly get there. Likelihood that the Sixers will get a deal done this week in general, and then likelihood that the Sixers will move on from Ben Simmons this week. What are the likely scenarios in both cases?
Yeah, I think it's 80% that they would make a move, whether it's a backup point guard or a wing could come off the bench and defend a little, maybe knock down a three or whatever. I would think. Now there is the buyout market in the wake of the trade deadline. And if they were able to get Harden, I would think they would be a more desirable destination, for buyout candidates that you would just have to pay the prorated minimum for the rest of the year. Harden, I thought last week was maybe 20%. Now I think it's more like 40% chance that they'll do something like that. But I mean, it's funny. You look at the Nets people or the people with the Nets point of view, and like the Nets don't have to do anything. And, Harden, why would they do something now? And, Simmons is down, Simmons is devalued. And then the Sixers people were like, well, Harden doesn't want to play there, which is, there's just, there's two different, reports on that. So you don't know. Although if you saw him the other day, his defense in the first quarter, he was barely in the area code of his guy. He's not exactly a lockdown defender, shall we say.
Yeah.
But it's the scoring and the two-man game with Embiid is what you would be, looking for. You would need to add, you can't just do it straight up. You would need to add another salary to make it work. Thybulle works. Maxey works, Curry works, Korkmaz works, Danny Green works. I mean, there's a lot of different options, and picks don't count in terms of the cap. So
right.
That I would imagine they might have to include something there, but who knows? But these things typically, both sides are kind of like haggling or not giving their best deal, and that tends to happen more Wednesday night, Thursday. Typically, that's why there's usually so many deals at the end, unless they can come to an agreement or a team's trying to cut salary, like the Clippers did with Portland, Portland did, with the Clippers over the weekend.
Right, with the Covington deal and all that stuff. Calling it the Covington deal, of course. But when it comes to the Sixers right now, I look at James Harden, and I see a guy that is obviously having his worst year, worst year of his career so far. Defense has never been really a bragging point for James Harden. But when I look at the scoring, I'm trying to not get too put off by just the numbers right now and try to compound that with how it would be if he had Joel Embiid. How much of an uptick do you think we would see from the production of James Harden, who's shooting career worst in three-point percentage and points per game?
Yeah, I mean, you would think they can't really double team both of them, because if you do, that means you have one guy guarding the other three players on the court. So somebody's going to get better opportunities. You could see teams play a lot of zone against the Sixers, which the Mavericks did on Friday. The Sixers were +9 in the first half against man-to-man, -18 in the second half against zone. The Sixers do seem to struggle against the zone at times in terms of either movement or getting the ball to the high post. They got to knock down shots if they're not having a good 3-point shooting game. And that's also a way to kind of, you can give more attention to Embiid and not necessarily just with a center, but just get bodies on him and keep him, off the glass, largely or whatever. So yeah, it's it really, he's 32. I mean, you're looking at, the guy could theoretically make $60 million when he's 37 years old. If he picks up, with a max deal, if he picks up his option and gets a max deal the last year, and the production has dropped somewhat, but the other side of the coin is, Embiid will be 28 next month. And I talked to Doc Rivers last week, about it, and he said, I tell our guys, realize that this is a gift you have, and we want to take advantage of this gift. Doesn't mean they have to do things, but they have to make a trade or whatever. But the point is that it's probably not going to last forever. Big guys, the history of big guys don't usually play at a high level until they're 36 or 37 years old, like LeBron is. I would be shocked if in 9 years Joel Embiid is averaging 25 and 10. I
Sure.
just don't. The wear and tear on the joints, the knees, the ankles, just everything. So if you make the trade for Harden either now or in the summer, it's win now, and there's no question. You probably have about a 3-year window where you got to get it done. Young players, unless they're going to be contributing or get you other assets, it's going to be like a Lakers situation, probably more so. Tyrese Maxey, if he's still here, obviously, because he can play. Mm-hmm. But draft picks, things like that, you see them, go out so you can get you trade them typically so you can get a, quality wing off the bench, or a guy can knock down threes with the second unit or stretch four or whatever it is. So it definitely is going to move the needle, and it will be the time to win will be now, whether it's Thursday and the rest of the season or in the summer, if they work it out.
Understood. So you see Tyrese Maxey as being a guy that would stick around. The Sixers very much value him and would incorporate him in a Harden deal.
I don't think, again, I don't think that Daryl Morey would want to do that. I wouldn't expect him to do that. But and he's been a revelation. He's been incredible. But I mean, Hall of Famers have been traded. Like,
right.
People say, and the one thing I'll say about like Matisse Thybulle is, if you watch the game Sunday, DeRozan had 45. They couldn't guard him. They had no wing defenders. They tried Danny Green on him. They tried Korkmaz, has no chance. And he went 18 for 30. By the way, Sunday was the first game in the NBA this year where there were two 40-point scorers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
40 and DeRozan 45. I did not realize that. I saw that online. Mm-hmm. I thought that was very interesting, because I would have thought with so many guys putting up big numbers that would have happened already.
Is that your dog feeding you stats as you're doing the show?
Yeah, he's annoyed because probably somebody drove through our cul-de-sac or something. He thinks he owns half of Warrington.
Understood. So let me ask you about another deal real quick, because I also want to ask you about Doc Rivers, but one of the other hot deals of the week was Bradley Beal, and talking about Matisse Thybulle and Tyrese Maxey. I would assume, if you would think the Sixers would kind of back away from a Maxey for Harden deal incorporated with Ben Simmons, that they wouldn't really be offering up Tyrese Maxey for Bradley Beal as well.
Well, probably not. I mean, although Beal's younger, he's an off-the-ball guy, so you could see a backcourt of Maxey and Beal work, because they can play together. I mean, a backcourt of Harden and Maxey could work too, but Harden's going to have the ball in his hands most of the time. And, Maxey's shooting over 40% on threes. So he can be, you can see his confidence growing, catch and shoot in the corner, the wing, things like that. You could see him playing alongside Harden. He just wouldn't be leading the fast break all the time. And they would probably be more of a half court team, which suits Embiid and it suits Harden. They'll run when they can, but it would be probably more limited. Beal's younger. I don't know. It's just I would think it's less likely they could get Beal than Harden. I don't know that for a fact, but I would just think the chances that the Wizards, wouldn't re-sign him, or the chances are high they really want to re-sign him. Where if Harden tells the Nets, I don't want to be here, whether it's now or in the summer or whatever, they would have to do a sign and trade or whatever. And to get something back, whether that would be Simmons, probably Simmons, and then whatever, to make it work. But and Dame Lillard would be a guy that would really intrigue me, but I don't know. It sounds like Portland's just trying to cut salary, essentially washing away this year. He's been hurt a lot, but want to keep him. You would think that they would probably, trade his backcourt partner before they would trade him. McCollum,
right.
You would think, but you just never know sometimes with how things go. What they got under the luxury tax now with the Covington, with that Covington deal. So there's just so many moving parts and so many things. The whole idea of trying to add Tobias Harris just makes it so much tougher, and you probably have to involve a third or fourth team to try to make it. Just makes it so difficult. To do. I would think if they're going to do it, it would be Simmons, and they would get a star back. I think Morey doesn't want to make a deal that's a good deal now and find out in the summer he might have been able to get a star, because he's all about getting stars, put as much talent together and figure it out then. And I think to get very good players, John Collins, Bogdanovich, whatever from Atlanta, or would help. But you want something that's going to put you over the top. And he acquired Harden, in Houston from OKC when OKC wasn't going to be able to max out Westbrook, Harden, and Kate and Durant. So they traded Harden, and Harden, just flourished and ended up having an MVP season, averaged I think 32 a game over 4 years for the Rockets. Now they never went to the finals. But had some regular season success and won some playoff series.
Certainly. I want to ask you about this article that you posted last week, and we'll get to some of your more recent stuff. But this article picked up a lot of steam, and it was about the relationship of Doc Rivers and Ben Simmons. And this is, of course, people can check out Bucks County Courier Times. And you also tweeted out the link as well. I believe I also retweeted it. But this article did a great job of talking about and getting these different type of quotes about Doc Rivers and his relationship with Simmons. It seems like, and Doc even said this during one of his press conferences, that he has been more supportive of Ben Simmons than anybody. But when I go back to it, I said, yes, he was during the regular season, and was in his initial press conference when he was originally asked about benching Ben Simmons, acting like that was ridiculous. And then a game or two later, he actually benched Ben Simmons at the end of the game. And then he threw him out of practice, and I know he was acting as a malcontent, but it seems like that relationship certainly was strained, all jumping off from the point that he was benched, and that he also said he didn't know if he could win a championship with him as his point guard. Does Doc really think that he could still be that supportive again of Ben Simmons, despite all the stuff I just listed off?
Well, I mean, there have been sort of rumblings from the Sixers, whoever about, still saying Ben, Simmons could theoretically, come back and play here, which I just don't think there's any way he would do that regardless. Maybe they would. I mean, if that would help him rebuild his value, and he's always been a very good regular season player, I would understand it. I just don't think, that would happen. But yeah, I mean, it was like a continuation of Brett Brown last year, really, pretty much until Game 7, when David Murphy said, do you see Ben Simmons? What do you think you can be a championship contender with Ben Simmons as your point guard? And his response was, I don't know about that, which is an honest answer. And coming off of, they played the whole season to have the best record in the Eastern Conference, had the best home record in the Eastern Conference, and they lost 3 or 4 home games to a younger, less experienced team. So I think he was stunned. I think he thought they would win game 7, and they were in position after blowing 25-point lead in game 5.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they could have easily won 6 of the 7 games, in that series, and they were the better team. So, I mean, I think he likes, Simmons. I don't, but I mean, there's not much you can do. And, Ramona Shelburne's story was that, Simmons apparently was upset that Rivers didn't come out to see him after not returning his text messages and phone calls. So, like, how do you know, and your players wanted to go out there and he said, don't come out there. So how do you know you were supposed to go out there? And that may be revisionist history. That might be what he wanted. That also might be, it sounds good now. I'll try to, deflect blame here, deflect blame there, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm. It's like being in a relationship and somebody says, just leave me alone. And then you leave them alone. Yeah. They're like, well, why aren't you coming over? That kind of thing. Anyway.
Yeah. I don't want anything for my birthday. Why didn't you get me something for my birthday?
No gifts this Christmas, right? Yeah. Don't fall for that. It's a trap. Sure. Now you more recently also talked about some other stuff from Doc Rivers. And it had to do with championship contending. People can also check this out with Gannett Media as well. But when it comes to Doc Rivers and a championship caliber team, what does he think is missing from this Sixers squad right now?
Well, obviously he knows. I mean, he said it a couple weeks ago that rebounding, they were last in the league in rebounding. They might not be last anymore, but they were as of last week, which is and the only change is going from a 6'2" starting point guard to a 6'10" starting point guard. I'm sorry, to a 6'2" starting point guard, and that's not Tyrese Maxey.
Sure,
but if you look at the numbers, Harris's numbers are similar, Embiid's numbers are similar, but you lose about 4.5 rebounds from Simmons to Maxey. And that's the difference. And that's how they were 9th in rebounding last year. And then they were last this year. And that's all it takes. It's a huge difference. But he said the one thing he sees from this group that he saw with his 07-08 Celtics was sort of the subjugating the ego, that they're it's for the group, it's the team. And he said part of that here is we don't have 3 stars. He likes to talk about the 3 superstar system. Mm-hmm. Well, they have 1 superstar, and you could argue that probably that's all they have. They have perhaps 1 emerging star in Maxey and some very good players in Tobias Harris and Seth Curry, but I don't think they're ever going to be kind of confused with being stars. So yeah, that's what you need. And he said last year, interestingly, I thought last year they didn't all buy in. There was still some individual stuff. There was still some I want mine stuff, in it last year. Whether he said part of that might have been that it was my first year here. They were learning me. I was learning them. This is the second year for the bulk of these guys, and they know what I want. They know what I expect, and things like that. And he said, it's always now's the time. It's always now's the time. But, he wants Morey to make a good trade. And he said they talk every day. Morey knows what he wants and what the Sixers need, but he doesn't want to make a bad deal that's going to, hamstring him or trade a first-round pick for a guy and then turn out you needed a first-round pick, to acquire Harden in the summer, let's say, or Beal or even, potentially Lillard. So, yeah, it was just interesting. And the Clippers, he had a Clippers team with
Chris Paul, obviously Griffin, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, all those guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Excuse me. And he thought they had a chance to win, and they were up 3-1 in the second round, lost 4-3. And he said, kind of looking back, he said it was all, I got to be the star. I got to be the star. He said there was jealousy. He said, looking back, you realize, we were kind of, it wasn't real. We thought we had the talent, but sometimes you can have the talent and not have the right attitude and vice versa. So he likes where the Sixers are, attitude wise, but he knows they need more. They just need more to be an elite. Their bench just isn't good enough. And I think they're proving that. Furkan Korkmaz has had a very difficult year. And you just don't, to have him consistently getting 15 minutes in the playoffs, I think you saw last year, he had 1 good game out of the 12, and you need more than that from your bench. I mean, every time they went to the bench, they couldn't wait to get Embiid and the starters back in because they just weren't able to hold the fort. And that's what you need the bench to do, at least be able to hold the fort.
Gotcha. Two quick things for you. I know your latest article just dropped at 5 a.m. Monday morning. So you were talking about the worst trade deadline deals. You had done the best. You're just doing the worst. That just dropped. When I think of bad deadline deals, and I haven't read your story yet. By the time we tape this, it's not out. But one of the worst I can go back to is in terms of like great expectations and not coming close to it. It's the Chris Webber deal. Like that to me is one of the all-time most exciting. But I don't think he's really that guy anymore. Oh, he's definitely not that guy anymore. But when you just think about that deal isolated, what do you remember about Chris Webber coming to Philadelphia?
For sure. It was trade. I think it was February. It was 23rd. It was 2004. It was Jim O'Brien's 1 year here.
Okay.
And they made the trade. We were in New York, and they were playing the Knicks that night. And Iverson talked to us pregame, which was unusual, outside the locker room.
Oh boy!
And the first thing he said was, "I talked to Chris, and he understands this is my team." So he was already like, Chris Webber may have been the guy in Sacramento, but you're not the guy in Philly. And they made the playoffs, lost in the first round 4-1 to the Pistons. And the next year, with a whole year here, did not make the playoffs. And that was the fan appreciation fiasco where they showed up late and the whole mess with Mo Cheeks and Billy King was all mad. And then they ended up buying him out the next year, and he signed with the Pistons. But he had microfracture surgery and just was not the player that he had been, earlier in his career. He just couldn't move, and it just didn't work. I mean, Billy King took a shot. It just didn't work. And they didn't trade a lot for him. I think it was like Corliss Williamson, Brian Skinner, and Kenny Thomas. But they took on a lot more salary. They did not win. And then they had to pay the guy like $40 million to go away, for 2 years. So, yeah, it was a swing and a miss. He took a swing. I give him credit. But, yeah, that was not a good one. Jeff Malone for Jeff Hornacek Jeff Malone in a first rounder for Jeff Hornacek was another bad one. Oof. Because they used the first rounder on B.J. Tyler, who was a guard out of Texas who played 1 year. The Sixers let him go in the expansion draft, and he didn't play again. He had a nerve issue. One of the beat writers used to say he called him B because he had no J.
It's funny. Iverson had that conversation with Chris Webber before the game. He meant to have it at practice, but we all know AI, man.
Yeah, that wouldn't happen. Yeah.
And then finally, I know you gave us a percentage here earlier. You were talking about an 80% chance that the Sixers get a general deal done. No specifics involved, not Ben Simmons, nothing. Just you're about 80% sure they do something.
Yeah, I would think so. Like, unless there's just absolutely nothing to do and they don't want to, trade, like I said, whether it's Korkmaz or Shake Milton or, something to get a Paul Reed, possibly Charles Bassey, whatever, to get something back that would help them a little bit. Now they could try the buyout market, but I think they probably need a couple things. So if they're not sure, if they can't do the Simmons deal, maybe they could make a deal for one of them and then get somebody else in the buyout market, in late February or early March or whatever.
All right. Any last thing for you then? Oh, it was 60% that they moved Ben?
No, I said 40%.
40%.
I guess
okay.
It was 20% before, and now 40. I would say 40% now.
Gotcha.
But it's still going to, it's the Nets basically have to decide that and Simmons. It sounds like he's going to take a couple weeks to be ready to play once he's traded. And Irving only plays on road games. You know what I mean? Durant's, had some injury issues. So I mean, even if Harden's not busting it at the defensive end, they probably have a better chance right now if he's going to play. If he wants out and is going to go through the motions, that's a different story. So yeah, I would say 40% chance that they trade Simmons. Again, total guess.
Gotcha. Appreciate it. Tom Moore, always a pleasure catching up with you, my friend. Greatly appreciate it. Make sure you guys check out all Tom has to offer. You can always follow him, of course, on Twitter right here, and follow all his great columns for the Bucks County Courier-Times, Intelligencer, and, of course, Gannett USA Today, part of that network as well. Tom Moore, great catching up with you, brother. Thanks so much.
Always enjoy it, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Tom Moore joining us on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line. Always good talking to Tom Moore. And, of course, that Rothman Orthopaedics guest line is brought to us by the one and only Rothman Orthopaedics. Hey, remember the old you? The one who didn't have to put up with a fickle knee, finicky hip, or shoulder that no longer does what a shoulder should do? Well, the Rothman approach to orthopedics is here to get you back to being you, back to running, walking, working, back to playing, back to living your life the way you want. With same-day appointments available, you can start today at RothmanOrtho.com. That's RothmanOrtho.com. Rothman Orthopaedics, the official orthopedic partner of your Eagles, Phillies, and Sixers. That's RothmanOrtho.com. How about the great people of WinView, the only game where fans can take on other fans and end the debate once and for all, who is the biggest sports fan? You have those friends and family members who think they know everything about sports. Play them in a WinView contest and see if they can walk the walk as well as they talk the talk. See if you can break the monotony of family dinners and get-togethers. Maybe play a little quarter of that Pro Bowl. Play a little Pro Bowl the other day. Yeah, boring. But if you played a little basketball, maybe you won yourself some money. What I've been saying, folks, on WinView, the prop of the day, Joel Embiid's over. Hit the over, that is. He's far from over, but hit the over. Make some money off it. Make sure you challenge your friend. Maybe you got a Joel Embiid hater. Maybe you got someone that says Joel Embiid sucks. Stop shooting threes. Maybe you're still one of those people. Challenge them to WinView contest. Win yourself some money. WinView, it's not a sports book. It's not daily fantasy. It's a social gaming app where fans can win real money prizes by making predictions on the games that you love so much. So make sure you download the WinView app right now. Make sure you're following all the stories, including leading up to the trade deadline of the NBA, with PHLSportsNation.com. That's Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience. All right, be back with you guys tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Talk to you on Tuesday. See ya.